Look, I need to be honest with you right from the start. When the Galactic Council announced they were integrating humans into the Universal Academy network, I thought it was the stupidest idea since the Vortani decided to colonize a black hole's event horizon. Yes, that actually happened. No, they did not survive. But this was worse. My name is Krell 5 and I serve as Administrative Observer for Sector 7 of the Academy Station Prometheus. Fancy title, boring job. I spend my days documenting incidents, filing reports, and trying to keep 17 different species from accidentally starting interstellar wars over cafeteria seating arrangements. The job pays well, the benefits include regenerative health pods, and nobody bothers me much. It was perfect. Then the humans showed up. The first batch arrived on a standard transport vessel, looking exactly like their reputation suggested they would. Bipedal, symmetrical, absurdly fragile looking. Their skeletal structure appeared to be made from crystallized stupidity held together by sheer audacity. When the transport doors opened, I remember thinking, these creatures survived to develop space travel? How? Director Vasa Nualv, a Krulorian with more sense than most, stood beside me at the docking bay. His facial tendrils twitched nervously. That should have been my first warning. Observer Krell, he said, his voice modulator crackling with static. I want detailed reports on every human interaction for the first standard cycle. Every single one. Sir, that seems excessive, I replied, already dreading the paperwork. Trust me, Vast 12's three eyes narrowed. With humans, nothing is excessive. My cousin worked at the Terran embassy. He retired after 6 months. 6 months, Krell. He had served for 40 years without issue. I laughed, actually laughed. How bad could they possibly be? Vast 12 just stared at me with an expression that roughly translated meant, you poor ignorant fool. The humans filed into Processing Bay 7 in a somewhat organized line. Somewhat being the key word. They kept looking around, pointing at things, making strange noises that I later learned were called oohs and ahs. Their lack of proper decorum was immediately apparent. No formal greeting protocols. No ceremonial acknowledgement of station superiority. They just wandered in like they owned the place. And there she was. Among the group of 23 human students, one stood out. Not because of any particular physical distinction, mind you. Humans all looked disturbingly similar to my eyes. Same basic configuration, same bizarre hair arrangements, same unnerving forward-facing eyes that make them look like predators, which I would learn they absolutely are. Her identification badge read, Mira Kowalski. Age 19, standard Terran years. Origin Earth, Eastern European sector, Poland subsection. Academic focus, xenobiology and comparative cultural studies. The file noted she spoke 4 Terran languages fluently and had achieved top marks in conflict resolution training. Conflict resolution. The irony would become apparent soon enough. She had dark hair pulled back in what humans call a ponytail. A practical choice given the station's artificial gravity fluctuations. Her eyes were green. Another detail I only noticed because the incident report would later require exact physical descriptions. She carried herself with the kind of casual confidence that suggested either complete fearlessness or complete ignorance of danger. With humans it is usually both. The orientation proceeded normally for approximately 47 minutes. The students were assigned dormitory sections, given their class schedules, and warned about the various species-specific requirements they would need to respect. Do not touch a thermion without protective gear unless you enjoy third-degree burns. Do not make direct eye contact with the Severian delegates. They consider it a mating challenge. Basic stuff. Mira Kowalski listened attentively, asked intelligent questions, and seemed genuinely excited about the academic opportunities. She even made several other students laugh with some comment about finally getting to experience real alien food instead of whatever that cafeteria mystery meat was back at the Terran Prep Academy. The other humans found this hilarious. I found it concerning. Humans have a disturbing tendency to joke about things that should be taken seriously, like nutritional poisoning. Then came dormitory assignments. The academy operates on an integration model. Different species share living quarters to promote cultural exchange and mutual understanding. In theory, it is brilliant. In practice, it means I process about 30 incident reports per standard week involving someone's sacred meditation crystals being used as paperweights or somebody's molted exoskeleton being mistaken for trash. Mira was assigned to Residential Pod 42, along with 3 other students. 1 Yillian, 1 Portian, and 1 Vexian. The Vexian was named Drax. This detail is important. Remember it. Drax came from one of the outer Vexian colony worlds, a place where military tradition runs deeper than their underground city networks. His family lineage traced back 17 generations of decorated officers. His older brother currently served as a tactical commander in the Vexian defense fleet. His father was a decorated general who had fought in the Krill incursion. Drax himself was destined for military academy after completing his basic education requirements here. He was in every measurable way Vexian nobility, and he had the attitude to match. Vexians are tall, averaging about 7 feet in human measurements. Their skin has a grayish-blue tone that shifts slightly based on emotional state. They have 4 arms, which they consider a sign of evolutionary superiority over lesser 2-armed species. Their culture values strength, discipline, and hierarchical order above almost everything else. Respect is not given, it is earned through demonstration of power. So when Drax walked into Residential Pod 42 and saw a human, a species he had been taught to view as weak and diplomatically insignificant, occupying the sleeping platform he wanted, his reaction was predictable. "You," he said, his voice a low rumble that made the walls vibrate slightly move. Mira looked up from unpacking her belongings. She had been organizing what appeared to be an excessive number of data tablets, and something called instant coffee, which I later learned is a mild stimulant humans consume in alarming quantities. "Excuse me," she said, her tone polite but firm. "That platform. I require it. You will take the smaller one." Drax gestured with 2 of his 4 arms, a dismissive motion that would have sent most students scrambling to obey. Mira stood up slowly. She barely reached his chest height. The size difference was almost comical. "Almost. According to the dormitory assignment protocols," she said calmly, "sleeping platforms are distributed on a first-arrival basis. I arrived first. This platform is mine." The other 2 roommates, the Yillian and Portian, immediately found reasons to be elsewhere. Smart creatures. I wish I had been so wise. Drax's skin tone shifted toward a darker blue. Anger. "Human, you do not understand your position here. My family has served the Vexian Empire for generations. I do not accept orders from inferior species." And there it was, the I word, inferior. Mira's expression did not change. She simply crossed her arms and tilted her head slightly. "Well, that is unfortunate for you, because here at the Academy, we are all students. Equal students. So you can take the other platform or you can file a complaint with the residential coordinator. Your choice." I was monitoring this exchange through the standard dormitory surveillance system, as was protocol for new student integration. I remember thinking I should probably intervene before this escalated, but I was curious. How would the human handle this? Would she back down? Would she try to negotiate? I did not expect what happened next. Drax took a step forward, using his full height to loom over her. Intimidation tactic. Classic Vexian approach. "Perhaps you need a demonstration of why my people are superior. Why we command respect." Mira did not move, did not even blink. "Respect is earned, not demanded. And right now you are acting like a spoiled child who did not get his favorite toy." Oh no, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Drax's 4 hands clenched into fists. His mandibles, small vestigial structures near his jaw, clicked rapidly. Extreme agitation. "You dare to insult me? You, a member of a species that only achieved space travel 3 of your generations ago? We were building star cities when your ancestors were still living in caves." Mira shrugged. Actually shrugged. "And yet, here we are sharing a dorm room. Funny how that works. I should have intervened then. I really should have. But something kept me watching. Maybe professional curiosity. Maybe stupidity. The line between the 2 is thinner than most people think." The standoff continued for another minute, both of them refusing to back down. Finally, Drax made a noise that sounded like rocks grinding together and stalked out of the room. Crisis averted. I thought I was so very, very wrong. The next 3 days passed with relative calm. Mira attended her classes, participated in study groups, and generally behaved like a model student. Drax avoided the dormitory when she was there and made pointed comments about primitive species whenever other students were around to hear. Typical posturing. Nothing I had not seen before. Then came the combat training course. Every student, regardless of their primary field of study, is required to complete basic combat certification. It is a safety measure. Space is dangerous. Pirates exist. Accidents happen. Students need to know how to defend themselves. The training arena is a massive dome-shaped structure with variable gravity controls and holographic terrain generators. It can simulate everything from zero-gravity asteroid fields to high-gravity jungle environments. The instructors are all certified combat veterans from various species, selected for their ability to teach rather than just their ability to fight. The instructor for this particular session was named Thorn 9, a Krillian who had survived more battles than most species had fought wars. He was fair, patient, and absolutely terrifying when he wanted to be. Today, Thorn 9 announced, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the arena lights, we begin paired combat drills. You will be randomly assigned partners. The objective is not to win. The objective is to learn your opponent's capabilities and your own limitations. Random assignment. Of course it was random. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. Guess who got paired together? When the assignments flashed on the display screen, I actually felt my respiratory organs constrict. This was going to be bad. I knew it. Vast 12 knew it. Even Thorn 9 looked concerned, which was saying something because I had once seen him get shot with a plasma rifle and his only reaction was mild annoyance. Mira and Drax stood on opposite sides of the practice circle, both wearing standard-issue training armor. The armor adjusts to fit different body types and provides protection against serious injury while still allowing impacts to be felt. Pain is an excellent teacher, the Academy believes. Begin, Thorn 9 said. Drax moved first. As expected, Vexians are aggressive fighters preferring to overwhelm opponents with superior strength and multiple limb attacks. All four of his arms came at Mira in a coordinated assault pattern that would have been beautiful if it was not so terrifying. Mira dodged, not blocked. Dodged. She moved like water, flowing around his attacks with minimal wasted motion. Drex's fists hit nothing but air. He tried again. Same result. Stand still. Drax roared, his skin now a dark, angry purple. No, Mira replied, still moving, still evading. This continued for another 30 seconds. Drax growing more frustrated. Mira growing more confident. She was not even trying to counterattack, just demonstrating that his strength meant nothing if he could not land a hit. Then she made her move. Drax overextended on a wild haymaker, putting too much force into a punch meant to end the fight quickly. Mira stepped inside his guard, grabbed one of his arms, and used his own momentum to throw him to the mat. The impact was loud enough to echo through the entire arena. Silence. Complete, total silence. Drax lay on his back, stunned. Not just physically but mentally. A human, a supposedly inferior being, had just thrown him like a sack of grain. Mira extended her hand to help him up. Good match, she said. He stared at her hand like it was a venomous serpent. Then slowly he got to his feet without accepting her help and walked off the mat without a word. Thorn 9 nodded approvingly. Excellent use of leverage and momentum, Mira. You showed proper understanding of physics over brute force. She smiled. Thank you, instructor. I updated my incident report. Minor training altercation. No injuries. Situation resolved. Professional observation. Monitor Drax and Mira interactions closely. I had no idea how closely I would be monitoring them within the next week. The cafeteria incident happened on day 8 of the human integration. The Academy cafeteria is designed to accommodate the dietary needs of hundreds of species simultaneously. There are sections for methane breathers, silicon-based lifeforms, and even a small area for species that consume pure energy. The human section was relatively simple. Organic compounds, proteins, carbohydrates, the usual carbon-based requirements. Mira was sitting with a group of mixed-species students, engaged in what appeared to be a lively discussion about comparative mythology. She was animated, using hand gestures to emphasize points, laughing at jokes. She seemed to be genuinely enjoying herself. Drax sat 3 tables away with a group of Vexian students. I noticed him glancing in her direction repeatedly. His skin tone kept shifting between normal gray-blue and irritated purple. Not a good sign. One of his companions, a Vexian named Tor, noticed his distraction. Still bothered by the human? He asked, loud enough for me to hear through the surveillance audio. She disrespected me, Drax growled. Disrespected my family honor. This cannot stand. So, challenge her formally, another Vexian suggested. Demand satisfaction through proper channels. Drax shook his head. She would use her tricks again. No. She needs to understand her place in a way she cannot evade. I did not like the sound of that. Not at all. 20 minutes later, Mira stood up to return her tray to the cleaning station. She had to walk past Drax's table to reach it. As she approached, I saw Drax tense, preparing for something. She walked past, completely unaware of the danger. That is when Drax reached out with one of his long arms and grabbed her ponytail. yanking her backward with enough force to nearly pull her off her feet. "You need to learn respect, human," he hissed. Time seemed to slow down. I watched, horrified, as Mira stumbled backward. Her tray fell from her hands, clattering to the floor. The entire cafeteria went silent. Hundreds of students turned to watch, and then, Mira did something that would change everything. She spun around, faster than I thought possible for a human, and her hand came up in a wide arc. The slap connected with Drex's face with a sound like thunder. Not just any slap. A perfect, open-handed strike that carried every ounce of her body weight and momentum behind it. The kind of slap that your ancestors feel. The kind of slap that echoes through time itself. Drex's head snapped to the side. He staggered backward, one hand going to his face, his eyes wide with shock. The purple of his skin deepened to almost blood. "Do not, ever, touch me. Again," Mira said, her voice deadly calm but loud enough for everyone to hear. The cafeteria remained silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Within moments, half the cafeteria was applauding. Not because they hated Drax specifically, but because everyone, regardless of species, understood what had just happened. Someone had been bullied, and someone had stood up to the bully in the most definitive way possible. Drax looked around at the applauding students, his face a mask of humiliation and rage. He took one step toward Mira, all 4 fists clenched. "I would not do that if I were you," came a voice from behind him. We all turned. Standing at the cafeteria entrance was General Vex Cordell, the highest-ranking Vexian military officer on the station. He was visiting to give a lecture series on tactical warfare, and he had just witnessed everything. Drax froze. His skin went from angry purple to terrified pale blue in an instant. "General, he started. "Silence," Vex Cordell commanded. He walked forward slowly, his heavy boots clicking against the floor. Every eye in the cafeteria followed him. He stopped directly in front of Drax and Mira. His eyes, dark and unreadable, looked from one to the other. Then he did something that made my blood run cold. He turned to Mira and bowed. Actually bowed. A Vexian general showing respect to a human student. "You defended your honor with appropriate force and restraint," he said to her. "This is the mark of a true warrior. You have my respect." Mira, to her credit, managed a slightly shaky nod. "Thank you, General." Then Vex Cordell turned to Drax. His expression hardened. "You, Cadet Drax, attacking an unsuspecting opponent from behind, grabbing hair like a coward. This is how you represent our people? This is the honor of your family line?" Drax seemed to shrink under the general's gaze. She disrespected. "She defeated you in fair combat and offered you aid afterward. That is respect. You responded with petty revenge. That is disgrace." Vex Cordell's voice was ice. "Your father will hear of this. Your instructors will hear of this. And you will report to the discipline coordinator immediately." Dismissed. Drax fled. Actually ran from the cafeteria, his skin tone now a sickly gray that indicated complete shame. The general looked around at the assembled students. "Let this be a lesson to all of you. Strength without honor is worthless. Power without restraint is tyranny. And bullying, regardless of species or status, will not be tolerated at this academy." He nodded once more to Mira, then left the cafeteria as regally as he had entered. The moment he was gone, the cafeteria exploded into conversation. Everyone was talking about what had just happened. The human who slapped the Vexian. The general who sided with her. The complete humiliation of... I sat in my observation booth, my hands shaking as I tried to type up the incident report. This was going to require about 17 different forms. Maybe 20. And explanations to multiple department heads. Fast 12 appeared at my door approximately 10 minutes later. "So," he said calmly, "how bad could they possibly be?" I looked at him with what I hoped was dignified resignation. "I hate you so much right now." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Welcome to human integration, Observer Krell. It only gets more interesting from here." As I watched Mira return to her table surrounded by students from a dozen different species, all wanting to talk to her, all wanting to be her friend, I realized something profound. Humans were not just going to attend the academy. They were going to change it, fundamentally, irrevocably, and I was going to have to document every single moment of it. This was only the beginning, and I already needed a vacation. The aftermath of what became known as the slap heard round the station was, to put it mildly, absolute insanity. Within 12 hours, every student on Prometheus Academy Station knew what had happened. Within 24 hours, the story had spread to 3 neighboring stations. Within 48 hours, I was receiving communication requests from news organizations across 17 star systems. Apparently, a human slapping a Vexian and getting praised by a Vexian general for it was the most interesting thing to happen in galactic education since the Thermian Institute accidentally set their entire campus on fire during a chemistry demonstration. Yes, that also actually happened. No, nobody was surprised. I spent the next 2 days processing reports, answering questions from increasingly bewildered administrators, and trying to prevent the whole situation from turning into a full diplomatic incident. The Vexian embassy sent 3 separate inquiries about the assault on one of their students. The human embassy sent 4 inquiries asking if their student needed legal representation. The academy director just sent me a message that said, "Fix this, Krell," which was spectacularly unhelpful but entirely predictable. Mira, for her part, seemed completely unbothered by the attention. She attended her classes, completed her assignments, and politely declined approximately 67 interview requests from various media outlets. When I finally managed to schedule a mandatory follow-up meeting with her to discuss the incident, she walked into my office looking as calm as someone ordering breakfast. "Good morning, Observer Krell," she said pleasantly, taking the seat across from my desk. "I assume this is about the cafeteria situation." I stared at her for a moment, trying to reconcile this polite young student with the person who had slapped someone twice her size in front of hundreds of witnesses. The cafeteria situation. Yes, that is certainly one way to describe physically striking a fellow student. "He grabbed my hair and yanked me backward," she said simply. I defended myself. I thought that was allowed under Academy self-defense protocols. Section 12, subsection 4, paragraph 2. Which specifically states that students have the right to respond with appropriate force when physically assaulted without provocation. I blinked all 3 of my eye membranes in rapid succession. "You memorize the academy regulations?" I read the entire student handbook during the transport flight here. Seemed like the responsible thing to do. She leaned back in her chair, completely relaxed. "Look, I understand this created problems for you administratively. I am sorry about that. But I am not sorry for defending myself, and I would do it again if the situation repeated itself." There was something about the way she said it. Not aggressive, not defiant, just matter of fact. This was who she was. Someone who would not accept being victimized, regardless of the consequences. "The general sided with you," I said, reviewing my notes. "That was unexpected, was it?" Mira tilted her head thoughtfully. "From what I understand about Vexian culture, they value strength and honor above almost everything. Drax showed neither. He attacked from behind, he targeted something that could not fight back, and he did it out of wounded pride. That is not strength, that is cowardice. You have studied Vexian culture extensively." "I have studied everyone's culture extensively," she replied. "That is why I am here. I want to understand how different species think, how they interact, how they resolve conflicts. You cannot build bridges between cultures if you do not understand the foundations they are built on." I made a note in my report. "Subject demonstrates exceptional cultural awareness and strategic thinking, possibly too much of both. Monitor for signs of becoming a future intergalactic negotiator, or stars forbid. A politician." "What about Drax?" I asked. "Have you encountered him since the incident?" Her expression softened slightly. "Actually, yes. He came to the dormitory last night." I sat up straighter. "And, did I need to file another incident report?" "Please tell me I do not need to file another incident report." "Relax, Observer Krell," she said with a small smile. "He came to apologize." This required several seconds of processing. "Apologize? Drax apologized to you?" "Surprised me too," Mira admitted. "Apparently the general did not just report him to the discipline coordinator. He also contacted Drake's father directly. From what I gathered, that conversation did not go well for Drax. His father was furious, not just about the hair-pulling but about how it reflected on their family honor, and he apologized sincerely? I think so. He was awkward about it, kept his eyes on the floor. His skin kept shifting colors like a broken mood ring, but he said he acted dishonorably, that he let his pride override his training, and that he hoped we could start over as dormitory mates. She paused. I accepted his apology. "Just like that?" "Just like that," Mira shrugged. "Everyone deserves a second chance. Besides, holding grudges takes energy, and I would rather spend that energy on my studies." I updated my notes again. "Subject demonstrates maturity beyond her years. Or possibly humans just have very short memory spans for conflicts. Further observation required. One more thing, I said, pulling up a specific document on my display. The Academy has received 17 formal requests from students asking to transfer into your classes or study groups. Apparently you have become quite popular. She looked genuinely surprised. Really? Why? Because you stood up to a bully and won. Because a general praised you publicly. Because you showed that physical size does not determine outcome in a conflict. I paused. And because, according to multiple reports, you have been helping other students with their coursework regardless of their species or social standing. Of course I help them. That is what students do. We help each other learn. Such a simple statement. Such a human perspective. Most species view education as competitive. Humans apparently view it as collaborative. Fascinating and slightly disturbing. Very well, I said, closing the file. You are free to go. Try to avoid slapping anyone else for the remainder of the semester if possible. She stood up, grinning. I will do my best, Observer Krell. No promises though. As she left my office, I could not shake the feeling that this was far from over. Humans had a tendency to attract chaos like gravitational wells attract space debris. It was only a matter of time before something else happened. I was absolutely correct, of course. It took exactly 5 days. The incident began in advanced xenobiology class, taught by Professor Cornern 14, a highly respected scholar specializing in cross-species physiology. The class was examining comparative anatomy, specifically looking at how different species had evolved different solutions to similar environmental challenges. Mira was partnered with a Yilian student named Seth for a practical examination assignment. Yilians are interesting creatures, delicate in appearance but remarkably resilient. They have translucent skin that allows you to see their internal organ systems, which is both educational and deeply unsettling. Seth was quiet, studious, and terrified of making mistakes. The assignment required pairs to identify and catalog the major physiological differences between their own species and their partner species. Simple enough in theory. In practice, it meant Mira and Seth staring at anatomical charts and models while trying not to be weird about the whole thing. Your skeletal structure is fascinating, Mira said, examining a holographic projection of Yilian bone composition. So much lighter than human bones, but the tensile strength is actually comparable because of the crystalline lattice formation. It is like natural carbon fiber. Seth's skin flushed a light purple, which I had learned indicated pleased embarrassment in Yilians. Thank you. Your muscular system is remarkable as well. The density is extraordinary for a species of your size. Very efficient. They were working well together, both engaged and respectful. Then Garth showed up. Garth was a Broxian, large and heavily built, with thick plates of natural armor covering most of his body. Broxians evolved on a high-gravity world with abundant predators, so they developed into walking tanks. Impressive from a survival standpoint, less impressive from a personality standpoint, at least in Garth's case. He had been watching Mira since the cafeteria incident. Not with respect, like most students, but with something else. Resentment, maybe. Or the kind of toxic competitiveness that some individuals develop when they see someone else getting attention they think they deserve. Studying human anatomy, Garth said, his voice like grinding stone as he approached their workstation. Why bother? Everyone knows humans are just fragile little things. One good hit, and they break. Mira looked up from her work, her expression neutral. Hello, Garth. Can we help you with something? Just making an observation, he replied, leaning against their table with enough force to make it shift slightly. You got lucky with Drax. He was not really trying. If he had been serious, you would be in the medical bay right now. Is there a point to this? Mira asked, her tone still calm but with an edge now. The point is, you are not special. You are not tough. You just surprised someone who was holding back because he did not want to hurt a weakling. Garth's small eyes narrowed. Any of us could break you if we wanted to. Seth had gone completely still, their skin turning a pale, frightened white. Several other students had stopped working to watch the confrontation. Mira set down the holographic controller she had been holding. She stood up slowly, walked around the table and stopped directly in front of Garth. The size difference was even more dramatic than it had been with Drax. Garth was easily 8 feet tall and probably weighed 4 times what she did. You think you could break me? She asked quietly. I know I could. Interesting theory, Mira said. Want to test it? The classroom went completely silent. Professor Corn 14, who had been working with another group on the far side of the room, turned to look at what was happening. Garth laughed, a rumbling sound like an avalanche. You are challenging me? Seriously, You are the one who came over here making threats. Mira replied. I am just calling your bluff. It is not a bluff, human. Then prove it. Combat arena. Tomorrow. Fair fight. No sneak attacks. No hair pulling. Just you and me and whatever skills we both have. She crossed her arms. Unless you are too scared to fight someone who might actually fight back. Oh no. Oh no no no. Not again. I was monitoring this through standard classroom surveillance, and I immediately opened a communication channel to Vast. We have a situation, I said. Let me guess. His voice came back. It involves the human girl. How did you know? It is always the human girl. What happened this time? She just challenged a Broxian to single combat. Silence on the line. Then. Of course she did. Of course. Why would she not? File the appropriate forms. I will contact the combat arena and administrators. Garth stared down at Mira, clearly trying to determine if she was serious. You really want to do this? You started it, I am finishing it. Tomorrow, Arena 3. Standard combat rules. Or you can apologize right now for being a jerk and we can all go back to studying anatomy. Another pause. Then Garth nodded slowly. Tomorrow, Arena 3. I will try not to hurt you too badly. How considerate, Mira said dryly. I will try to do the same for you. Garth left. The moment he was gone, Seth rushed over to Mira. Are you insane? They whispered urgently. Broxians are incredibly strong. Their armor plating makes them nearly impossible to injure. He could actually seriously hurt you. Probably, Mira agreed, sitting back down and picking up the holographic controller like nothing had happened. But bullies only stop when someone stands up to them. If I back down now, he will keep doing this. To me, to you, to anyone he thinks he can intimidate. But what if you lose? Mira smiled. Then I lose. But at least I will lose standing up instead of backing down. Now, where were we? I think we were discussing the efficiency of your respiratory system. I spent the rest of that day trying to figure out if there was any way to cancel the match. Unfortunately, once a formal challenge is issued and accepted in front of witnesses, Academy regulations require it to proceed unless both parties agree to cancel, and neither Mira nor Garth were going to back down. The match was scheduled for the following afternoon. Word spread faster than a Thermian wildfire. By evening it seemed like every student on the station knew about it. The betting pools started almost immediately. The odds were heavily in Garth's favor. Something like 20-1. I found Mira in the library that night, researching Broxian physiology and combat techniques. She had dozens of articles and videos pulled up, studying movement patterns and analyzing weaknesses. You know you do not have to do this, I said, sitting down across from her. She looked up surprised. Observer Krell. I did not expect to see you here. I could say the same. Most students facing combat matches spend the night before psyching themselves up or panicking. You are doing homework. Knowledge is the best preparation, she said simply. Garth is bigger, stronger, and better armored than I am. If I try to fight him the way he expects, I will lose. So I need to fight him in a way he does not expect. And you think you can find that in research materials? I think I can find it by understanding how he moves, how he thinks, where his vulnerabilities are. She gestured to one of the videos showing a Broxian combat demonstration. See how they shift their weight? They rely on their armor to protect them so they do not dodge much, and their joints where the armor plates meet, those are flexible points, necessary for movement but potential weak spots. I looked at the materials she had compiled, strategy breakdowns, physiological analysis, historical combat records of Broxian fighters. She had been preparing like this was a military operation, not a student sparring match. You are taking this very seriously, I observed. Of course I am. Garth wants to prove humans are weak. If I go in there unprepared and get demolished, that is exactly what he proves. But if I go in prepared, if I show that intelligence and strategy can overcome raw strength, then maybe that changes some perspectives. She closed one of her files. Plus, I really do not like bullies. I have noticed, she smiled. Look, I appreciate the concern, but I will be fine. I have been training in martial arts since I was 6 years old. My grandmother insisted. She said a person should know how to defend themselves, regardless of whether they ever need to. Your grandmother sounds wise. She was terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. Mira's expression softened with memory. She survived a war, raised 3 kids alone, and once chased off a burglar with nothing but a rolling pin and absolute fearless rage. When she said learn to fight, you learn to fight, I made another note. Human family structures apparently include training juveniles for combat as standard practice. Explains much. The next afternoon Arena 3 was packed beyond capacity. Students from every species crammed into the viewing areas. Even some of the faculty showed up, though they pretended it was for safety supervision rather than entertainment. Thorn 9 would be refereeing the match. He stood in the center of the arena, his expression unreadable. Garth entered first, and the crowd cheered. He was wearing light training armor and looking confident. Overconfident, actually. He waved to the crowd like he had already won. Then Mira entered and the cheering got louder. She wore standard training gear, her hair pulled back again in that practical ponytail. She looked tiny compared to Garth. Absolutely tiny. They met in the center of the arena. Thorn 9 reviewed the rules. Standard combat protocols. No lethal techniques. No strikes to critical organ areas. Match continues until one fighter yields or is unable to continue. Do you wish to withdraw? Thorn 9 asked Mira formally, giving her one last out. No, sir. Very well. Fighters, take your positions. They moved to opposite sides of the circle. The arena went quiet. Hundreds of students holding their breath. Begin, Thorn 9 said. Garth charged immediately, exactly as Mira had predicted. Broxian's favor overwhelming force. He came at her like a freight transport, all momentum and power. Mira did not try to dodge far. She sidestepped just enough for his grab to miss, then immediately went low, sweeping at the back of his knee joint with her leg. It was not enough to knock him down. His weight and armor prevented that, but it disrupted his balance slightly, made him stumble. She used that stumble, moving before he recovered. 2 quick strikes to his left side joint where the armor plates met. Not hard enough to cause real damage, but enough to make him feel it. Garth spun, faster than something that size should be able to move, his arm sweeping out to catch her. She ducked under it, rolled, came up behind him. This pattern repeated for the next 2 minutes. Garth attacking with massive, powerful strikes that would end the fight instantly if they connected. Mira evading, redirecting, targeting the joints and gaps in his armor with precise, calculated hits. She was not trying to overpower him. She was trying to wear him down, frustrate him, make him make mistakes, and it was working. Garth was breathing heavily now, his movements getting sloppier as frustration built. Stand still, he roared, exactly like Drax had days earlier. No. Mira called back, and I swear she was grinning. He charged again, putting everything into one massive double-fisted strike aimed at where she was standing. If it connected, the match was over. Mira waited until the last possible second, then dropped flat to the ground. Garth's fist sailed over her, his momentum carrying him forward. As he stumbled past, Mira grabbed his ankle with both hands and twisted, using his own momentum against him. For the second time in a week, I watched a student twice Mira's size crash to the arena floor. The crowd went absolutely insane. Garth lay there for a moment, stunned. Then he started to push himself up, armor scraping against the floor. Mira was already moving. She got behind him, wrapped her arm around his neck in what I later learned was called a rear naked choke, a submission hold that cuts off blood flow to the brain without causing permanent damage. Yield, she said calmly. Garth struggled, trying to use his strength to break free. But the position was too good, the technique too precise. Yield, she repeated. His struggles became weaker as oxygen deprivation started to affect him. Yield, finally, desperately. He tapped his hand against the floor 3 times. The universal signal of submission. Mira released him immediately and stepped back. Garth collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Thorn 9 raised his arm. Winner, Mira Kowalski. The arena erupted. Students cheering, stomping, making whatever noises their species made to express extreme excitement. I saw money changing hands as bet payouts were settled. I saw students from a dozen different species chanting Mira's name, and I saw Garth slowly get to his feet, his expression a mixture of humiliation and something else. Respect, maybe. Mira walked over to him and extended her hand, just like she had with Drax. This time the hand was accepted. Good match, Garth said quietly, his voice rough. Good match, Mira agreed. You are incredibly strong. If any of those hits had connected, I would have been done, but they did not connect. Because you were smarter. He looked at their clasped hands. I underestimated you. I am sorry. Apology accepted. She released his hand. Want to grab some food from the cafeteria? I am starving, and we can talk about combat techniques if you want. I would love to learn more about Broxian fighting styles, just like that. From opponents to potential friends in the space of a few sentences, they left the arena together talking animatedly about joint locks and weight distribution. The crowd slowly dispersed, everyone discussing what they had just witnessed. I remained in my observation booth trying to process everything. Vast 12 appeared at my door again. This was becoming a pattern. "So," he said, that same annoyingly knowing tone in his voice. "How is human integration going?" I looked at him with the full weight of my exhaustion. "They have been here 9 days. 9 days, and I have processed more incident reports than I typically handle in a month. She has slapped one student, been publicly praised by a general, and defeated another student in combat. At this rate, by the end of the semester she will probably be running the entire academy." "Probably," Fast 12 agreed cheerfully. "But you have to admit, it has been interesting." "Interesting, that is one word for it. Look at it this way, Krell. Before the humans arrived, this place was predictable. Safe. Boring. Now we have excitement, drama, students from different species actually interacting in meaningful ways instead of staying in their segregated social groups. That human girl is doing more for interspecies cooperation in 9 days than most diversity programs accomplish in years." He was not wrong. In the days following both incidents, I had noticed something. Students who would normally never speak to each other were forming study groups. Species who traditionally kept to themselves were eating meals together, asking questions about cultures and customs. The barriers were breaking down, and Mira was at the center of it, somehow managing to befriend everyone she met while simultaneously refusing to tolerate any form of injustice or bullying. "You know what the worst part is?" I said to "What?" "There are 22 more humans in her cohort. If they are even half as disruptive as she is, I am going to need to hire 3 more assistants just to handle the paperwork." Vast 12 laughed. "Welcome to the new galaxy, Observer Krell. The humans are here, and nothing is ever going to be boring again." As I sat there that evening, updating my reports and preparing for whatever chaos tomorrow would inevitably bring, I realized something profound. I had spent years at this academy seeing it as just a job, a place where different species came to learn basic skills before going their separate ways. But Mira and the other humans were showing us something different. That different species could not just coexist, but actually connect. That strength came in many forms. That respect was earned through character, not intimidation. 3 weeks later, I attended a gathering in the student commons. It was Mira's idea, a cultural exchange event where students from different species shared food, music, and stories from their homeworlds. The Vexians, including Drax, demonstrated traditional combat dances. The aliens performed a bioluminescent light show using their translucent skin. The Broxians, led by Garth, shared folk songs that made the entire room vibrate. And the humans. Mira taught everyone a dance called the electric slide, which looked absolutely ridiculous but somehow got students from 17 different species moving in synchronized chaos. I watched from the sidelines, documenting everything as was my duty. But for the first time in my career, I was not documenting problems. I was documenting something wonderful. Vast 12 appeared beside me, holding a cup of whatever the humans called punch. "Still think human integration was a bad idea?" he asked. I watched Mira laughing as she tried to teach a Thermian the proper footwork, both of them completely unbothered by the fact that they came from worlds billions of miles apart and had absolutely nothing in common except the desire to understand each other. "Ask me again at the end of the semester," I said, "when I have calculated the final incident report totals." But I was smiling when I said it, because the truth was, the humans had not just integrated into the academy, they had transformed it, made it better, more connected, more alive. And if that meant I had to process a few extra reports, well, maybe that was a small price to pay for being witness to the beginning of something truly extraordinary. The galaxy was changing. The humans were here, and somehow, despite all the chaos and paperwork and completely exhausted resignation, I was glad, even if I would never ever admit that to Veswa.